Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities. We're going to walk through the dollar, the 10, 30-year yield, precious metals, and all the other commodities I follow. Again, I'm going to give you just my financial opinion. If you guys need help with anything, the platinum membership for the finding-value.com, that's where I would look if you guys are looking for some help. So let's dive in here. Let's take a look at what's going on. So DXY, the relative strength indicator of the dollar, that's what I'm calling it. We're getting more weakness today. Now, we saw this same type of weakness at the top of the last, I should say, in the middle of the last bull market of commodities. We had a strengthening dollar in the beginning of it. It turned around here and came back down all the way to the bottom. Are we going into a similar situation today where we're going to head lower here? And this is going to be the top of the dollar? You know, I don't want to sit there and try to make predictions. That's not the name of the game. It's how do I position what's cheap and our inventories going down. The inventories are going down in a lot of these commodities. Yes. The only thing that's not a tailwind right now, and I'm going to pull it up to show you guys, is your M2 money supply. The M2 money supply has been slowing down here recently. It started slowing down in March of 2022. And it's been a rocket ship from there all the way up to March of 2022, and we've been creeping sideways. This has been moving sideways with gold, and oil is kind of moving sideways right at that March 2022 mark. And that is the only thing that I can see out ahead of us, which is a headwind, which could be a decent sized headwind. Now, eventually they're going to have to continue this move higher, not lower, in the M2 money supply. And I think that's what gold and all these other ones are sniffing out. So the dollar is heading lower in the short term. It means that the other currencies are kind of firming up. It's looking a little bit brighter for the other currencies, and the dollar's starting to head a little bit lower. We'll see if this breaks down here to the downside, or if we get a reversal here and head higher. But to me, we're getting lower highs in here, barely. And it could be just a consolidation flag pattern. So let's see what happens over the next couple of trading sessions. See if we break to the downside here. I think we'll be clear if we get down to the 107 range or somewhere down there. That will definitely be a break to the downside. But right now, it does look like it wants to head lower. The 10-year yield, it's basically moving sideways here on the 10-year yield. It's down today, but we've been moving sideways the past few trading weeks. Are we going to get a move lower here, or are we going to continue on up? We have conflicting data here. We've got bullish engulfings in here. We've got some larger selling pressure days. It's definitely looking like the buyers and sellers are starting to equal out a little bit. So again, a lower 10-year yield, coupled just with lower yields in general, higher bond prices, and with the dollar going down and the yields going down, gold likes that. Precious metals like that. So this could be kind of a double top. I think it's too early for us to say that. The uptrend is still somewhat intact. Let's just see what happens the next couple of trading days. Bond prices are firming up, but they're still, in a firm downtrend, and nothing's broken yet. So we can't say that trend's been broken. And even if it does, it could be just a short consolidation period. And then TYX is also weaker, but the trend is still intact. So yields are still intact to go higher, and bond prices are still intact to go lower at this time. The trend is still in place. TYX to TNX, this is one that I started watching. We've got a downtrend line here that's about to break at any second, or has broken maybe, perhaps just today. We could be breaking out here on this downtrend line for TYX to TNX ratio. What does that mean? It means that the 10-year yield and the 30-year yield are normalizing. They're going from an inverted state to an uninverted or less inverted state, I should say. Less inverted. Gold loves that. It loves it when the yield curve drops and normalizes. This is gold's wheelhouse here. Gold and other precious metals. So that's what we've got there. That is very bullish for gold and silver. It's more evidence stating that we could have a very large run. And if you look at the big picture view here, we had a large run up with an inverted yield curve going this way. Or sorry, that's uninverting. This is inverted yield curve going this way, and we could come back and uninvert to the top here. We've got a lot of runway for gold and silver to hit it. And think of it as, QE or loosening of monetary means. So the CRB index, today we were down a little bit. It's a small down day. Not much to really talk about. We're still above the support line. Everything looks good for a continued move higher in commodities. The commodity index, I should say. Everything still looks intact, still looks all right. The CRB to S&P 500, down a little bit today. We've got the S&P 500 moving on higher today. But we're in this consolidation period that is coming back and sideways. It's a big consolidation period for the ratio. Big picture view, though, this is bullish to me, and then eventually we'll work our way higher. Gold ripping it today. We are breaking out of that downtrend line that we were looking at yesterday. We had the bloody nose, the continuation pattern today. Still looks good for a move higher. And it doesn't mean that every day will be higher. We can still have consolidation periods, but the downtrend line is broken, and that is a very good thing. And we pierce through two resistance lines here. The blue resistance line is going across here. We pierce through that, and we pierce through the resistance line here. I call that a hot sword going through butter. Just right through it. So that's really good. Silver also getting some hop back into its step. Downtrend's broken, sideways motion, and then we usually work our way on up. We are working our way on up. Again, does not mean every single day goes up. We're working our way up. Platinum also following suit, doing quite well. This looks like a clearer and clearer breakout as we see this from a long-term view. Looks very good, very strong closing. We're up towards those highs this month of the closing. We've got a lot left in the month, so hopefully we can close this month strong. But looks very good there. XAU to gold ratio, it is ripping it. Nice, good move here. I wish it would have, ended very strong, but we do have a little wick at the top, and what that usually means, a little bit of momentum was lost towards the end of the day, but still looks great. Looks really good. So GDX up 6%, bouncing and breaking through. We've been bouncing on the support, and we broke through it. I've talked about where I like to buy things on support levels. We've broken up to the upside. Looks really good for a move to the upside. And then SILJ also moving on up. We had some resistance through this area. It's coming and trying to break through that resistance, and we could see a move on higher eventually in GDX and SILJ. And a big picture view, if you were to look at it, we bounced off this support level-ish. We've got some support underneath us. We bounced. We had a falling wedge as well. All very good things for a potential turning point. Crude oil heading a little bit lower. So this is a big picture view here. Let's just go over this real quick. Big picture view, we do have this trend line in here that we have not reclaimed yet, but we're still above this very strong support level at $75, $76, somewhere in that range. Let's zoom in there, look at the dailies. We do have a little bit of selling pressure here today. Now, what are we going to do here? Are we going to kind of break through this support line through here and break down lower and head towards the 75 again? Or are we going to just moonshot it? Where I'm going to throw another support resistance line through. I'm going to throw another one right in this general vicinity here. We have another support line there, and then we have another resistance line above us right in this general vicinity. So we're squeezing between a bunch of support resistance areas. What I'd like to see is a clear break above 93, 92.50, $93, somewhere in that range. I'd like to close up above that. That's what I really like to see. If we get a little bit of selling pressure here, it is still possible to get down into that 75-ish range and do a double bottom. There's nothing saying that that can't happen. But we know that our inventories are declining. We know that there's physical tightness in that market. And what we need to do is get above 93.50 and close and stay up there. We could come back to the 75 level for whatever reason. It is still a possibility. So yes, I'm bullish on oil. I'm not going to sell my oil. We are still in an uptrend. Everything's still intact. We have a little bit more selling pressure today, and we'll see if we can hold, turn this on up, or if we're going to break this trend line and go a little bit down for another kind of bottomish type pattern. If that's the case, buying opportunities galore. So if that is the case, we should be seeing weakness or strength in XOP or OIH. So we'll take a look at those next. We've also got natural gas, the banshee of the group. This guy is ultra volatile. It is a banshee. We've got the flag pattern. We popped out of the flag pattern, and now we're doing that retest move. It's very volatile, as you probably have noticed. So we're back at the support level here, and let me clean this up real quick for you guys. Show you that it's not just ghetto drawing in here. What we did there is nice kind of smooth break there, doing the retest, and now we want to see which way we're going to want to go. We've had a lot of momentum coming down here with this selling pressure here. That's a lot of momentum. And this could hang out for a little bit, moving sideways. We'll call it kind of the accumulation consolidation period. That is still possible before a move on higher. But we're doing a retest. We'll see what happens next. XOP, yeah, you know me. I think this still looks really good. We have a bloody nose again today. And we've got a nice, good support level at 147.66 or so. So it still looks good to me for a move higher. So we have conflicting data here. We've got the mining or the exploration production companies looking good for a move higher. And we've got a little bit more selling pressure in crude oil today. Which one is right? I think the positioning in the exploration production is probably right, and that we'll see crude oil either have a short pullback and then a move on higher, or just it rips higher. But again, that's my opinion. We don't have that. That's not a fact. I'm just kind of looking and reading and seeing where my wages would be. But right now, OIH is also throwing in one of those bloody noses. That's usually a continuation pattern to the upside. We've got a downtrend line that's just been broken. Now, that does not mean, you got to keep this, we're playing with statistics and probabilities here, guys. That doesn't mean that we can't come back here and do a retest, kind of move somewhere down there. It doesn't mean that can't happen. Same with XOP, it doesn't mean that we couldn't come back and move on higher. Even though we've got the statistics behind us saying, hey, look, we've got the bloody nose, it's ready to go higher. It doesn't mean it has to. So we have crude oil, which has a little bit larger down date. It's still in the uptrend. XOP, OIH looking good to move higher. We want to see what happens next. Are we gonna break above 93.50, get up on top of it, and start moving on up? Or is there still one last pullback before heading higher? Again, the path is unknown, and that's the statistics and the probabilities there that we're looking at, is what I've just mentioned there. Uranium futures pricing still getting a little bit of selling pressure here. We were down 2.37%. I am still a bull in uranium. URNM, all these other companies, they look pretty strong. We've got higher lows still coming up, higher highs in the short term. Still looks all right for a move on up. We're seeing positioning in some of these companies like the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. Remember, we are underneath this long-term resistance line, and we want to try to break through it. Monthly candlestick basis, this is a positive sign with the bloody nose. You look at it from a little bit zoomed in, a weekly candlestick perspective still looks good. And then the dailies, it's looking better. We had some selling pressure here. It came on back. It didn't come back as low as this guy. So we have higher lows. We have a nice good bullish engulfing today. That usually means a reversal pattern to the upside. So I would say Sprott Physical Uranium Trust looks good to go higher. URNM, also getting buying pressure today, bullish engulfing today of the candlestick before it. I think it still looks good. We get these higher lows coming on up. If you were to look at that, I kind of just drew that in. Let me get off log scale. Everything still looks all right. We do have a little wick at the top. We lost a little bit of momentum at the end of the day. Doesn't mean that's going to necessarily reverse. It's not a huge wick at the top, but there is one. So we'll see which way this thing rolls. Again, we're kind of at a decision point. Are we going to break above that resistance line on the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust and move on higher? We'll find out. TAN moving on higher today, 3.5%. I still think this all looks good. Nothing to worry about there. Copper is looking really strong, 3.11%. We're coming up to this other resistance line right above us. That's the support level of what it is down here. And if you notice, I just want you guys to notice something too. Silver is very similar to copper, and I think those two are obviously related. They come out of the ground together. But I think copper moving higher, silver moving higher. I do think there might be some relationship there, but we're coming up to that resistance level, and we got to break through that. That's what's next. Lithium moving on higher today, looking quite good, quite strong. There could still be a little bit more consolidation before a move on up. Usually it doesn't just look like this. We get a bounce or two more, but lithium's looking a lot better. Rare earth metals bouncing off this support. Again, I like buying off support levels. I've said that multiple times, and it's looking good for we'll call it a move higher over time. The standard, so this is the SPX, Standard & Poor 500 index. I think this looks bearish to go lower. I know that sounds weird, but we've got this selling pressure here, and then this weak bounce higher. And we haven't really eclipsed anything here. So I think that we could potentially still go lower here if it wants to. And I don't see the big buying pressure. We got good buying pressure back here, but it kind of ended. It's like, where did the buyers go? Where'd you go, buyers? And then the NASDAQ's also got the same type of setup. It's a pretty weak bounce in here. We've got good buying pressure here, good selling pressure here, and I still think that this has one last spill out of it to the downside if we're going to move on higher. EEM, weaker dollar, stronger EEM, that still looks good to move on up over time. XHB, this is the home builders ETF, same setup. Stronger selling pressure here, and the buyers are just, they're weak. They can't extend any sort of large candlestick over here yet. So I'm still looking for potential downside, at least a couple days or something like that. Looking at MU is moving higher. We're breaking through that resistance level, much like COPX. Remember, we had that support level, and we're starting to break and recapture that resistance level and start using it as support again. Copper moving higher. This looks good for a potential move on up, and signaling perhaps there's a little bit of strength in the economy. China reopening, maybe it's still positive. They've been playing the we're going to open up, we're not going to open up game, that just the tip game, so to speak. And I think they're probably going to open up. They're probably playing that game to get oil prices down so they can fill up their strategic petroleum reserve, the opposite of what we're doing. But those guys seem a little bit more, I'll say, strategic in their viewpoints, not as much tactical. Lumber heading a little bit lower. This is a more bearish scenario. We could head on lower to the downside. I've been, holding my tongue on any comments on housing. I want to see what the data is showing us in housing starts. I know we've got the whole housing crash group, and they're pumping out videos left and right on that. But I'll see what happens there. We've got, this is the iron ore futures. We still are bouncing up 2.33%. You can't really see it there. But we'll see if we can turn this guy around. That's usually somewhat related to dry bulk shipping. Aluminum futures down 1%, just moving sideways above support, that long-term support level. I think that actually looks good. Baltic Dry Index is up today, 1%. To me, this looks like we've got some sort of pattern here that is forming of a falling wedge. And eventually, I think we'll break to the upside, especially if China is, in fact, reopening. And then the Newcastle coal futures down just a little bit. Looks like it's contracting a little bit, and we'll see if we can try to turn here. So that's what I've got for the day, guys. Congrats to those that are in the precious metals area. Looks like we've got some good buying pressures, breaking some downtrends. Looks excellent. I think uranium's looking pretty good, like it wants to move on up. Crude oil, I would say conflicting data. We've got the crude oil futures pricing heading lower today, but it looks like there's still positioning happening in XOP and OIH. So which way is this thing going to break? The downtrend isn't broken yet in that short-term downtrend, but we did get a little bit more selling pressure today, a little bit more than what I would like to see, but doesn't mean that we can't go higher. So we'll see what happens over the next few days, and we'll monitor it. And not that I'm going to do anything. I'm a long-term investor riding this stuff for the entirety of its bull market, but we could see a short-term pullback if we want to sell off here in crude oil. Natural gas has been a banshee. The thing's up and down, left and right. But we have a return move, and we'll see if we get support right where it's at. And overall, copper, rare earths, lithium, they actually look pretty good. So I like all those. And that's all I've got for today. Give me a thumbs up if you guys like the content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll catch you guys later. This is Finding Value.